The Bank of International Settlements issued a report today. Cryptocurrencies looking beyond the hype. The Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of the central bankers. This is a great book if you're interested in what the heck that's all about. Tower of Basel. Great read, and it's shadowy history, but it's not a conspiracy theory book. It's pretty straightforward. Um, I think that's a good book. Gave me a good understanding. And before I get into this, I just want to say I may have discovered, where's the next bubble? Is it Bitcoin? Is it government debt? Well, look at this. This is Augustín Carstens, who runs the Bank of International Settlements. Is he, in fact, the next bubble? Look at this. I have kids. We play with bubbles. This looks like a bubble, and these guys think I'm hilarious right now. Okay, we're talking about economics. Got to keep it light. Trying to be funny. Thank you. All right. So the report starts off. I like that it says, we're talking about trust here, and that is what it is. The history of money is the history of money eventually being debased, being diluted, its value being hurt. I think they even say that right here. Well, that's on the next page. I'm already skipping too far ahead, but they said right here. Sustained episodes of stable money are historically much more the exception than the norm. Eventually, people figure out how to debase money. They talk about that here with, commodities. They talk about the problems with commodity money, and they don't even mention the fact that commodities, if it's a metal that's mined, eventually people mine too much of it. If it's a crop that is grown, they grow a lot. When it was shells, someone eventually figures out how to find more of those shells in the ocean. So that's the problem with money throughout history. And it's a problem that Bitcoin solves. Now, one thing I didn't like in this is they talk about cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency is a giant space of so many different projects. And most of them are not trying to be money, and it's certainly not money in the sense that it is a currency that would compete against the dollar, yen, and euro, or be a foundational layer to replace the fractional reserve banking system. So and the problem with saying cryptocurrencies, oh, well, we're just trying to talk about them all, is then they start lumping Bitcoin in. In fact, they talk right here, the fragility of decentralized consensus. They talk about how fragile cryptocurrencies are. Well, many cryptocurrencies are fragile. Many of them, many projects won't work and are being attacked and they're fragile, but not Bitcoin. So I think they throw a lot of arguments at cryptocurrency, and although that may be true for cryptocurrency in general, it's not true at all for Bitcoin. And so I think they're diluting the value of a report by talking about cryptocurrencies in general. And also, in a couple places, they talk about scaling. Let me just see. Well, further up, now I'm skipping way ahead. Yeah. Well, anyways, they do talk about scaling, and there's no mention of the Lightning Network. There's no even mention, and if they're talking about cryptocurrency in general, in second layer solutions. They talk about, where is this? Yeah, I guess I'm skipping ahead. Maybe I'll wait till I get to my notes on what I'm talking about here. So let's keep going. Then they talk about this. This is always sort of this existing banking system likes to throw out this stat here that money, it's a unit of account, meaning things are priced in it, medium of exchange, meaning you buy things with it, and a store of value, it holds its value. And they say that it's like, well, Bitcoin doesn't do all those things, so it's not money. But this article, I think, does a great job. I'll put the link, and I've mentioned it before. Bullish Case for Bitcoin. Long article by Vijay Bopati. Great article. But one thing he talks about here is first something becomes a collectible. Bitcoin originally was just a collectible. Oh, this is cool, right? By some, nerdy people. Then enough people have it and some people want it. It becomes a store of value. That's where we're at now. The idea that the next wave is Wall Street institutional money. People, I'm going to put 1% there because I think it's a new thing. It's going to hold my value. It's a store of value. Nobody's spending it yet because, the Lightning Network just launched and it's not really adopted yet. We don't have that So there's no way that Bitcoin can be a unit of account. When you walk into a store right now, nothing is priced in Bitcoin because you can't spend it. So it wouldn't be. These things come one after another. These are steps, and we're only at step 2. So when they say, oh, it's not money because it hasn't got to the last step yet, now the issue is it going to get to the last step? That's what, the central banks need to be talking about, not writing it off because it's not done yet, right? Um, okay. We talked about that. Let's see. And this here, again, we have this. So formal central banks, as we know them now, emerge in direct response to poor experience with decentralized money. I don't agree. It's not really with decentralized money. We've never had decentralized money. And they're saying, okay, there's a way that they could use the term decentralized money to explain what they're talking about. And I'm going to explain what they're saying in a second. But let us not confuse. There's been nothing like Bitcoin in the past. Bottom line is this. Fractional reserve banking means somebody gives money to a bank. The bank says, okay, I have what you have, and they don't hold it. They give it out, and they just hope that you don't come back. So the original system was a bunch of bankers randomly writing paper against the reserves, and they didn't keep enough reserves. That system, as you can imagine, creates unpredictable inflation, here, there, chaos. When they, using central banks to manage the fractional reserve banking system is better than the fractional reserve banking system with no central bank. But that's not what we're talking about. That's the argument of 1920, and the central banks won. And they're right. I would prefer, if we're going to have fractional reserve, I prefer it with a central bank. But what we're talking about is Bitcoin, where you don't have these issues of trust. You can, if you wanted a bank that really holds your money or a way, you can monitor that your money is not being secretly lent out on you and you're not being diluted. And so the argument is that now, for the first time, we don't need the existing system, which includes the central bank. So, the point is, though, but if you're arguing with someone who loves the old system, please just give them the 1920s argument. Yeah, having a central bank is better than the system that preceded it. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the next system. Bitcoin, money, whatever it is, 4.0. So then they go into stability. Again, more with the stability. I've talked about this before. It's mostly just, to me, it's two things. One is when Bitcoin's fully adopted, it's a lot more stable, right? I mean, dollar is stable against the existing economy because everybody has all we have. We're using dollars. Everything's priced in it. The real economy can't change that much in a minute. So, it holds stable as opposed to the smaller, fast-growing Bitcoin money. It's less stable due to its size, but you'd have to compare when it's adopted. The other point is, well, they talk more here. Where is this? We're on 93. Where is this? Stable unit of account, blah, the stability thing. Oh, and this thing about elastic money supply. Again, they talk more about this, and I talked in depth in a video I made a little while ago. By the way, thank you for those who said they liked this video. I'm loving this economics type of talking, doing videos like this. Glad to see that people liked it. Hopefully do more. Anyways, this video where I talked about the government, the existing central bank system thinks that their money supply is elastic and that's good for the economy. In this video, I talk about that. I believe the opposite is true. We'll take or leave the existing system. I think that it's this argument that its elastic money supply is good for the economy. I just totally disagree. And that's in that other video. I'm not going to get into it here. And then, now this, I was a little surprised that they start talking about finality, which finality and in payment, once you get your money, it's final. You have it. It's not going to be changed. It can't be taken from you. Like, That's one area where I don't think the existing system has any chance to compare to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, once it's added to that block, it's final forever. That's it. Whereas the existing system, I don't know, as a merchant for 20 years, e-commerce merchant for 20 years, I know that a credit card transaction, they can do a chargeback at least 6 months, you know, and it's fine. There's not that many chargebacks, and their fees or whatever. But it's not, everything is not so final. Certainly not as final as it is with Bitcoin. So I'm not sure what they're talking about there. And then they talk about how, I don't know, they probably just started going into cryptocurrencies aren't final, but Bitcoin has finality one. I don't know where they're going with that argument. And they made a really pretty, finally introduced some colors into this report, though I have no idea what they're trying to tell me with this, to be honest with you. It's really pretty though. Then, which page? Oh wait, did I go too far? No. Okay. Do. Then they start talking about how the system works, really, the technology behind it, and I didn't read this that closely, because I sort of, the technical and how it works. There's probably, if you want to technically know how any cryptocurrency works, there's probably better places you can go. If you want to know how Bitcoin works, Andreas Antonopoulos can probably explain it better than the Bank of International Settlements. If you're interested, you could read, but I don't really care. And if they got something wrong with the tech, that's not really, I'm not too worried about that. And then here they get into, wait a second, here it is, yeah. Then this thing about the cost of the system, something around here. Well, this is also the part with about scaling. There's a couple, let me talk about the, wait, is this where they talk about the mining? Yeah, energy and mining. So first of all, let me say, I care for the environment. I agree that burning fossil fuels, uh, not good for the environment in the long run. Like to see it reduced. Mining requires energy. Energy, unless Elon Musk solves this problem, requires often burning of fossil fuels. So I get it. What is the cost of this Bitcoin system, right? And people say, well, it's expensive. Well, the thing is, I haven't studied that deeply exact of what the costs are. But remember, you have to compare the cost of the Bitcoin system with the cost of the other system, right? There's a cost to running this system, central bank, government, and these banks. And by government, you don't have to have the cost of government, but the government is part of the existing system, right? The existing banking system. What does it cost to run all this? What's the cost of inflation being pulled out of this, the real economy? What's the cost of having a credit cycle that throws companies off their feet? You got to compare cost to costs, and I don't know what that is. And it's such early days. And also, someone had an analogy I thought was great. Was a guy had said his wife, oh my God, she's been pregnant for 8 months. At this pace, 5 years from now, she's going to be as big as the moon, right? Things can change. We have off-chain scaling on the Lightning Network coming on Bitcoin. Maybe so many of the transactions, all the growth goes off-chain. And anyways, but they talk about, Bitcoin's expensive and bad for the environment. Heard that before, and like I said, we'll see. And then there's more of this. The ledger will swell and swell beyond storage capacity. This is kind of like when, email started working. Oh my God, it's going to crash the internet. And then, they build it out and it's fine. But now pictures are coming. When everyone's sending photos, that's going to crash the internet. And then they build out and it works. And then, video's coming. And then that's going to break the internet. They build it out. And, the ledger's going to get bigger and bigger and it's going to break Bitcoin. And then they fix it and we move on. That's, and again, no mention of the Lightning Network. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I wonder if they don't even know about second layer solutions. On one hand, if the Bank of International Settlements doesn't know about second layer scaling or doesn't know about Lightning Network, then on one hand, it's like, geez, it would be nice if leaders of these institutions knew what was going on. On the other hand, it means that we know more than they do. We're ahead of the curve. Maybe that's good. I don't know. But anyways, then here, this thing they talk about, again, not understanding scaling. So Bitcoin, because last year, I think someday we'll look back and tell our grandchildren, for like 2 weeks, it cost $40 to process a transaction on Bitcoin. Really? How is that possible? Well, anyways, with the on-chain scaling, and at least with the situation of Bitcoin last year, the more people that came on, the more difficult it was to run. And this is a problem where usually, when things scale, as they get bigger, they gain more value. But with the Lightning Network, the more people that are on the network, the easier it is to use, the cheaper it is to use, the faster it is. So that, again, solves this problem that they're talking here. The more people that use a cryptocurrency, the more cumbersome payments become. That is not, again, they're saying cryptocurrency. I don't know about every cryptocurrency, but with Bitcoin, with Lightning Network, this is not true. So, and then they talk more about this whole demand, and stabilization of money, the pricing. And I even have more to say to it than I have in this video. But again, if that interests you, watch my video and you can read this. And again, they talk here. They're going to stabilize the value. The central agent stabilizes the value of the currency. Just more on that same topic. Then again, cryptocurrencies, they're all very substitutable with one another. I mean, do they really believe that? I just, that's a very naive view here. But I guess obviously that's what they think. So, I mean, and just to give you a quick, let's just think about it here, right? So you got Bitcoin, which hopefully you know about, right? So then but Bitcoin is money. That's what it's trying to be. Just trying to be a money that could be a new financial system. Ethereum is a platform for decentralized applications. These two are not the same, right? Okay, they're both cryptocurrencies, but they're not going in the same direction. EOS is another decentralized application platform, but it isn't even the same as Ethereum. They're trying to sort of solve the same problem completely different ways. You can't, look at these as the same. In Bitcoin Cash, this was another thing they talk about regarding debasing a currency, and they say that when the currency forks, it's another way of debasing, diluting the value of the currency, because now you have twice as many. No. Okay, that would be like if Federal Reserve said, okay, we're going to print more dollars, and these are going to be called, dollar CH2, and those are only acceptable in certain banks, and the regular dollar, it's not two separate dollars, it's one more dollar they diluted. This is two separate platforms. Try to get a Bitcoin person and a Bitcoin Cash person in the same room and ask them if the two are the same. Okay, these two things. Now, the second after they split, the technology was similar, but they're going in different directions. The wallets they work with, the networks, the exchanges that they're in, they're different. These are not all substitutable. Litecoin is similar to Bitcoin. I've given the analogy, it's like the fish that swims through the teeth of the shark eating its food. They work together. Bitcoin's the shark, Litecoin's the fish. Again, not substitutable. You can't substitute the little fish for the shark or vice versa. Certainly wouldn't want a shark cleaning my teeth. Ripple is a different story. Maybe they're trying to be the banking system and like Seller, there's some, but and then Dash is trying to be money. But you can't compare Dash to Bitcoin. This is a small, very tiny coin. How centralized is it? It's a different platform altogether. They're trying, it's run almost like a business. There is a bit of a central organization to it. They're trying to come up with their upgrade evolution. It's completely different than Lightning Network. Okay, I could go on for hours, but unstable new cryptocurrencies. So new cryptocurrencies are not closely substitutable. Thank you. And I think, did I talk about finality? Right? I think I did. If not, I'm sorry. I did it. This is my second video and I forgot what I'm talking about. And this is a long video, so I don't want to repeat myself. Oh, and then this again, they talk more about how cryptocurrencies are fragile. They are fragile. Bitcoin is not. Last year, China says, we want to get rid of all these exchanges. Some of the biggest exchanges in the world in China. 2 months later, none of the exchanges were gone, and they were all just in different countries. That was a pretty strong government attack from a big government on part of Bitcoin's infrastructure. Bitcoin did not blink an eye. This thing is not fragile. Okay, then they talk about their forks here. And then again, it's just, cryptocurrencies have shortcomings, and many of the shortcomings they mention are true, but they're not true of Bitcoin. Although, wastes huge amount of money, huge amounts of computing power. It uses a lot of computing power. Whether it's a waste or not, time will tell. But then they talk about permissioned payment systems. IBM's working on a lot of permissioned blockchain projects that may be interesting. But as their payment settlement, they are using Stellar Network, which is a decentralized, open public network, not permissioned. Maybe they're referring to Ripple here. Yeah, that kind of exists. But again, I think that the Federal Reserve, the central bankers, you got to pick your argument. I think. I guess, and they are trying to talk about. I mean, I guess that's their argument is cryptocurrency, but then this article doesn't make that much sense. Cryptocurrency is too broad of a statement, right? But anyways, then they talk about a couple other here. Let's see. So one thing I thought was funny too, they talk about fraud and thefts that have occurred. There've been thefts at so many places, but Mount Gox was, it was 80% of the volume, involved with tons of criminals, and then run by a guy who had no clue, and the whole thing collapsed. What a disaster. Meanwhile, Bitfinex, one of the biggest exchanges, I've talked to a guy who runs it. He talks to me once in a while. Very good insight. It's Philip Potter from Bitfinex. They had a theft once, but boy, are they the whipping boy of the press. I guess this isn't the press, but they're always, mentioned for fraud and scams, and I don't really believe they're doing anything wrong. Time will tell, but just I think to be in this report and be anyone who's listed next to Mount Gox is not happy, right? A poor Bitfinex. I almost laugh, but I do feel bad for them. And then they talk about, it's kind of stupid. Everybody wants to control their own shit, and then they buy a Bitcoin and they leave it, or they buy a cryptocurrency and they leave it on the exchange, thereby trusting the exchange, which I agree with. Own your own coins, own your own private key, store them safely so you don't have to trust anyone. If Coinbase is holding your keys, they seem fine today, whatever, but you still have to trust them. Hold your own keys. They make a good point that a lot of people are doing that. It's kind of ironic, and I agree. You should be holding your own keys. And then they also talk about here then ICOs and fraud issues. Yeah, most ICOs are totally stupid. But have you seen an ICO that's like, oh, we're launching to become money, we want to compete with the dollar? No. Most of these ICOs, they're all specific niches. Some of them are great ideas. Some may turn out to be great companies. Some of them are stupid, and a lot of them are pure fraud. But what is that? What that's the Bank of International Settlements doesn't need to worry about that. That's not, So, and then, systemic risk. This is a topic for another top thing, but I have this view. Sorry again if I'm repeating myself. But I think that a financial system that is based on a fixed, solid, trusted supply will be more stable than a financial system where its base is based on debt and incomplete collateral, where you have this contagion thing, right? I just don't see that in general it would be more stable. I think Bitcoin should be more stable. And this whole systemic risk thing, systemic risk is part of the existing fractional reserve banking system. And finally, they talk here about, now this is a real problem that we need to figure out, if the story of Bitcoin turns out to be true, and there are some other currencies with money, but the bottom line is two things. Tax, you call it tax evasion, but the bottom line is this. Our existing tax collection and monitoring system is based on the existing technology. If we upgrade, and let's just say everyone agrees, oh, this is better technology with Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies and whatever we do, well, you got to build all new systems for taxes. And some of them, it doesn't fit in. And just, if we're going on the honor code, I think rates do go down. I mean, I guess that is tax evasion, but this is going to be a concern. And it might also be the nature of the way money works now. Trying to collect it in certain ways doesn't really work, so we come up with new ways of getting that revenue. This is a big question and a big problem, and the government's in no position to wait. They're hugely, spending more than they bring in. They can't afford to go, well, let's try the new system and we'll figure out taxes in a few years. No, they need the money yesterday. So that is going to be an interesting conundrum. Depending on how fast everything moves to the new platform. And then AML, anti-money laundering, what is this called? The CFT, something about terrorism, avoiding terrorism, whatever. And the reality is, the last whatever, I don't know how many years, maybe 100, or I guess since computers, governments were able to sort of track and monitor all money that's spent, and they use that to get the bad guys. And so on one hand you say, well, that's cool. I mean, we all want the bad guys to be stopped, certainly terrorists. But, can we monitor every transaction still? Is it even possible? And if it is, you got to remember there's the benefit of getting the bad guys. There's also the cost of interfering with 99% of all other transactions, which are not crime, right? It's sort of similar to the argument with free speech, in that, it's like, well, we don't want people saying bad things, but if you start monitoring all speech, then all speech gets screwed up, and we don't hear end up not hearing smart things and new ideas and all that. So, anyways, another tricky point here that, something that the government has sort of relied on. If money becomes easily private, and viral, and decentralized, and by viral I mean everybody just starts using it, like despite any government wishes, then they're going to have issues with these two areas. So there you go. And then, okay, again, with the cryptocurrencies, global coordinated regulation. If the central banks are trying to globally coordinate all cryptocurrencies, I think they got their work cut out for them. I think if they focus on one type, like Bitcoin, and if you group a couple others in there that you think are in the same ballpark, that's fine. But just say cryptocurrencies in general, again, just too broad, I think, for what they're trying to talk about. And then, should central banks issue digital currencies? Eventually, we're going digital. It's going to happen. Certainly, I don't think the central banking system will be the first to digitize. However, I think this is why I like Stellar networks, because Jed McCaleb built a system to on-ramp this existing platform. And as much as I love Bitcoin and think it has great potential, I think this will be competing systems, at least for a long time. I don't think fractional reserve banking goes away. Government needs a way to be funded. And they've got the Stellar network to go on to. So although they're hemming and hawing here, Hemming and hawing. What is the word? Hawing? Anyways, although they're thinking about what to do here, I think eventually, you know, Stellar is built for it, and now IBM implementing Stellar, who runs all the computers in the banks and the central banks. I think that's where they're going eventually. Whether this guy knows it or not, they will be digitized. However, when this guy touches digits, the bubble pops. The bubble, when you pop it, digits are actually sharp, and it goes boom. I mean, he looks a little scared. All right. Thank you. I think that's all I have to say. Let me know your thoughts. Stay tuned.